So can you create the dots and create what people will love? So the reason I put this together is creating a product or a service that people love and they want to buy is one of the hardest things that any entrepreneur does. So I've spoken to many business owners before about their experiences, and do you know what? It's just really difficult bridging the gap between what our customers will settle for and what they'll buy, and what they actually really want. Okay, so understanding the principles of creating what people can't resist is very tricky, but it also means that if you are successful, it's very difficult for your competitors to sort of copy. So the backstory of or the elements that go beyond a product and service itself, it bridges the gap. It makes it magnetic, and people fall in love with your brand, your product, your service. More often than not, these are usually unseen and often overlooked factors that that the businesses that build demand they get. Okay, but it relies on infrastructure, it relies on an ecosystem, and on really good business design. And when you get that right, okay, that are sort of the ingredients that you need to create demand, to make something that people fall in love with, make it magnetic, and all of the great stuff that's like that. Okay, the good thing is there's loads of businesses out there that have done this really well, and there's loads of businesses out there that you can compare them to that have sort of failed their competition as such. So with so many getting them right, okay. Classic example of Steve Jobs and his iPhone, and what he did is he brought together the touchscreen, the mobile phone device, the Safari web browsing, and just try and remember browsing on a BlackBerry with their internet. It was just so long, it was so difficult, and the browsing was just a horrible experience. Okay, the great thing about the iPhone is it takes a lot of things and puts them together that make it such a desirable product. Okay, personalising your own screen, the touch screen which works really well, so it interfaces with everything. Siri, being able to just talk to the mobile. And look, the truth is that iPhone compared to Motorola, Nokia, HTC and BlackBerry that were dominating the marketplace, they were just completely off track when that iPhone touchscreen first came about. And we all know that, I mean, the rest is history with what Samsung obviously try and do with copying with the iPhone design. And the reason the competition's doing that is because it works. It's what the people will pay for. And that's the important bit. They got off the fence and it created so much demand. I mean, there's queues for an iPhone. Obviously, there's other comparisons which include like McDonald's and Gourmet Burger King and Five Guys. And those bigger companies, I mean, McDonald's obviously been around for donkey's years, but Gourmet and Five Guys, they just exploded in sort of more of a bit of a higher brand burger that people are willing to pay for. And Burger King and Wimpy, I think they're still around in Africa actually. They sort of didn't thrive. They didn't make it, which again tells you a lot about demand. That it is tricky and it moves because customers' tastes and trends obviously move as well. So now I'd probably have to make another video to talk about the battle between Sony and the Amazon Kindle. But Sony invented the e-reader. I think it's five years plus before Amazon and the Kindle. Okay, so Sony, they lost millions developing that electronic reading device, and the sales were awful. Okay, so Amazon, and remember this, right? Amazon does not make technology. It does internet shopping. Gets everything from A to Z. If you have a look at the little arrow there under the Amazon logo. So they're not even a technology making company, and they thrived it. They hit it out the ballpark with the Kindle. So the stories of companies getting it right does give really intriguing lessons about demand, right? And it's complex. Okay, so when I talk to entrepreneurs, I do have the conversation about demand and their customer experience, what their problems are and their hassles, and it's a bit difficult to understand, especially when you're comparing it to infrastructure, ecosystems, and business design. Okay, as I mentioned earlier. So, if you look at Netflix, which this is actually quite a good example of demand. So, I'm not going to talk about Blockbuster and all of that sort of stuff in the video market, but try and think about the amount of time it took. So Reed Hastings is the creator of the Netflix system. Okay, so he came up with the concept of posting a movie to your home, right? And the packaging that was required just to make sure that was safe in the postal system, okay, and that it didn't break DVDs, as well as getting it back. That's obviously a bit of a tricky thing as well to get it throughout the whole of America, as well as sort of like the independence that existed between the demand and the element of infrastructure. Okay, so convenient movies by mail, which is what Netflix created. Okay, that business model wouldn't exist, okay, if the invention of the DVD player hadn't been created and DVDs wasn't in use. Okay, so does that make sense? Okay, Netflix would only exist with their business model if the packaging, the DVD, the postal system, it was dependent on those things for Netflix to actually exist. Okay, so there's another one as well. Right? This is a good example. Okay, so if you look at social media, right? So the Facebooks and the Twitters and people now doing likes and whatever the thing is you do on Twitter. I'm not that sure. Okay, the social media wouldn't have existed or have grown to the demand that it has built if it hadn't have been for mobile internet ready devices. And there's other things that are added onto it, like the Facebook location, telling people where you are. I think there's live video streaming, so it's constantly developing as the sort of infrastructure and the ecosystem of mobile phones and internet usage, as that creeps up, it allows these business models to sort of work hand in hand, okay, in creating that demand. I didn't mean for that to rhyme either. Right. So when one is depending, when your product or service is dependent on the developments of other ecosystems or infrastructures, and then putting together your business design, right? It's really it is so difficult, right? But Apple understood this, and they also knew what consumers wanted from a mobile device with regards to like the apps, personalization, the touchscreen, the music, and so on, right? So what Steve Jobs has is the ability to sense and sort of know what to provide the customer, okay, and what they'll want in the years to come, okay, because what you have to remember is someone in the family will decide when they'll upgrade their mobile phone contract and what they desire in their minds, what they want that product to be. So what does this mean for you as an entrepreneur with your business, right? Look, it's just understanding the complexities of it, right? And connecting the dots, all the problems that your customer's going through with the product or the service, the problem or hassle that you fix, and the invisible bits that are sort of around it, okay? So building your backstory is not good enough if Starbucks only had Wi-Fi and the decor wasn't really there, or the way that they packaged the coffee, right? 90% of a backstory isn't good enough. You truly have to connect all the dots to fix like the hassles, the dreams, what the customer's wants are, what the needs are, and make it completely magnetic. And you don't stop until you continuously develop this service and make it absolutely irresistible. Let it generate excitement, let it generate conversation, let people talk about it so they're no longer sitting on the fence and not buying, right? It's the first business that creates this and captures emotional space in the market that wins.